Thank you guys for coming into my talk. This is one of those frightening moments for any speaker that you worry that no one's going to show up. And as long as there's at least 2 people, you're not just having a private conversation, you feel pretty good about it. So I'll take it. Thank you guys for coming to BSides. Make sure you thank the sponsors. I hope you enjoyed the pizza. It was all really good. So today we're going to talk about my oh-so-very favorite topic of remote access tools, Trojans, and I'm going to quit moving out of camera guys' way. And I want to make sure that we get this talk started off in the right context. So there's been some breaches go on. You guys have noticed, right? The most recent one, of course, Anthem and Cryptia actually put out a really good article about attribution and some of the weird things that go on in our industry. And I took this quote from his blog because it really encapsulates to me everything that's really going wrong with what we're doing as an industry and what we can do better. And it's a screw up of communication, really. And the problem being, of course, as he stated there, there's a lot of things going on. There are a lot of reasons why we don't know what happens in a lot of these breaches until way down the road. And as somebody who has to work doing forensic response, network intrusion response, and doing pen testing and seeing it from that side, we're running into a lot of problems. And it's easy to say the problem is X, a certain country, a certain technology, a certain attack vector. And it's not that easy. And it's also easy a lot of times just to say, oh yeah, people are stupid. That's why we have these problems too. And I don't want that to be what we attribute a lot of these problems to either. So we have all these problems. They're very complicated. There's no good, right, perfect answers for everyone that just fits, one size fits all. And anybody who tells you otherwise is selling something. Just a little bit of introduction to me. My name's Ben Miller. I am an ethical hacker with Parameter Security. We're based out of St. Louis. My boss and managing partner is the gentleman in the other room talking about pulling out photos off of PhotoBucket and getting really fun information from that. I highly recommend his talk when you get to visit Adrian's website later. I started off as a tech guy in the 90s doing break-fix work, router switch work, network security. And I always thought it would be fun to be in control of all these networks. And then I realized that that's like tier 3 support. And that's not fun at all. Anybody in this room done tier 2, tier 3 tech support? You get the questions that aren't fixed by saying, have you tried turning it off and on again? And not as fun as you would like. So I changed gears back in 2001 after the .com bust. Got a completely different degree. Didn't like that any better. And started working for a friend of mine at a hospital in Northeast Missouri. And this whole HIPAA thing started being enforced in 2006, which is funny because the statutes were created in '96. It took them a decade to basically get to the point where they could actually say, yeah, we're going to enforce this stuff. And so I started looking at security. And I started finding that, oh, the security thing's going to take off. There's some money to be made here, and there's a lot of fun. And I also found that the real way to run a network is to break into it. And I wanted to know how the bad guys did that. So I took a class. We're not going to name the class that I took because it's gone downhill for a lot of reasons. But I learned a little bit about hacking. I met Dave Chronister, and I really wanted to know what it would take to work for him. So I started doing this pen testing thing. I did some CTFs. I did some just other work on my own, VulnHub and boot to root systems. And I figured out enough of this stuff that I could fake my way through a job interview and got to become a pen tester. It was great. And it's a lot of fun. Any of you who are not currently pen testers or ethical hackers or any of that, I highly recommend it. It's about 80% report writing instead of actually breaking stuff, but still, it's a lot of fun. One of the things that I latched onto as a topic that is very cyclical in nature, how much people talk about it. They're either talking about it a lot or they're talking about it a little. And we're starting to be back on the upswing, and that is on malware. With this one caveat, I am not a programmer, which is weird to say in the hacking industry. A lot of guys, there's still the mentality of if you didn't write it yourself, you're just using somebody else's tools, you little script kiddie. but everybody uses everybody else's tools for the most part, at least for some part of the engagement, especially when you've got a tight turnaround time for your deliverables. And so I've made it work. But what I have started learning, and I highly recommend picking up, is enough Python to script things together. And if you throw enough imports together, things start to work and cause a lot of fun damage. So I am not going to demo any code today that I wrote, mostly because it looks like a hideous monstrosity if you see my code, and because other people's code work better for what I'm trying to show. So let's talk about malware. It is on an upswing. You know, if you look through some of these breaches that have happened recently, they start with a phishing email, somebody drops some malware, turns into a lot of access, and headlines. And that's bad. And we get, you know, this kind of response again of, well, they're doing everything wrong, so, you know, we just can't defend. Defense is stupid. We can't do it. What are we going to do? I don't like that answer. I am very much an optimist, especially after seeing the Cyber Patriot high schoolers this morning. Oh, man, is that awesome. I have so much optimism for the future now, mostly because of them. So I'm an optimist, even though malware's there. Did I say it? That was part of a name, but good job, and haha, you missed me. You're awake. I'll take it. So there's a lot of good that's going to come from hopefully looking at malware closer. But the problem is also one of scale, in that, you know, we have all these tools for watching our networks, all these blinky light devices, these security analysts. I'm a big fan of Splunk, Network Miner, just even Wireshark. Like I said, I'm a network guy at the end of the day. And I always say, especially to clients when I'm looking at their networks, trying to explain to them why they just got owned, is that there's truth in network traffic. You know, for two computers to talk to each other, there's certain rules, protocols, that have to be held on to. Once you get to manipulating the memory and rootkits and Trojans on a system, you can't trust what that system's telling you anymore. So when I am responding to these incidences that have Trojans in place, which are all too often common, I was in Kansas City 2 weeks ago just for that purpose. Kansas City is not as near as fun to visit as Huntsville. When I'm saying that, when I'm trying to tell them that, yeah, this stuff's on your network, the only proof we usually have is here's the network traffic of it going somewhere weird. And always we get the attribution problem of, okay, who is that? And all I can say is, I don't know. It's this IP address. Well, this person owns that IP address. Does it mean that it's them that's hacking me? Maybe. Or they have a VPN in place and they're, you know, using anonymizers and they're bouncing through 5 different countries and 7 satellites or whatnot. So what I want to do, and my kind of mentality in educating and the shtick that I have here, is I like educating people on how Trojans work, how malware works, how to catch it, with some caveats. I'm going to talk about very small things to look for. I'm going to demonstrate something that I personally have not seen anybody else demonstrate in a conference setting like this, actual network traffic over the internet that shows this is what the Trojan's doing under specific circumstances. And hopefully that will give you a better understanding, if you are a blue team defender, of the crap you need to be looking for on your network, the questions you need to be able to answer. Or if you're on my side of the fence and you're a red teamer and you want to learn how to test these things so that you can trust your own tools, this is what I go through in order to make sure that what I'm going to do on a client site, A, is going to work, and B, isn't going to bring anything down. Because clients hate it when you cause downtime. So remote access tools. Any tool that gives you some form of remote access is a rat. Depending on whether or not the user, owner, person sitting at the keyboard knows that you have remote access, determines if it's a Trojan or if it's a tool like Teamviewer, Show My PC, Remote Desktop. Otherwise, it's the same piece of code. It's giving me access to what you're sitting at, even though I'm not sitting at it. That's the only difference. And I get kind of picky about this because Trojans get thrown around as the boogeyman. We don't know what this code does. It's sophisticated. But it gave access that we didn't want these other people to have, so it must have come from some APT type attack. Just like animals in the slide here, it's just another flavor of something we've already encountered. So most of the time when you see these kind of demos, you see a video, and actually the gentleman that was doing the PowerShell stuff in the other room talk before this had a really great demo of this is what it looks like between two VMs. And that's really all you need to show people in order to scare the bejesus out of them about what you can do with Trojans. And I'm somebody who has given that type of talk before. Those of you who may have been at another BSides in the same town about a year ago saw me give that talk, where I show my video of two VMs talking. Here's all the fun stuff I can do. Pop open the CD tray, throw up error messages and all that. And it's scary. But it promotes this kind of mysticism, magic idea that these Trojans are something that we should all be in constant fear of, and we just have no recourse for finding them, that we're always under attack. And some of that's true, but I want to give you a few better examples of what to work with. So after I did the video, the video link here didn't work real well, but it's on IronGeek. After I did that talk, I had a few different people hit me up on various online forums and at several bars that, hey, this Trojan video stuff that we see, it's not how things really work. I want to know what it really looks like for a tool to connect over the internet. That's not enough. Show me something better. And I went to Google and I said, please Google Foo, give me the answer that somebody else has done this example, this demo, this talk. And I didn't really find anything. Like, why hasn't anybody done a demo of a Trojan over the internet? And I ran into some issues on why that is. Mostly, the reason why we don't do that is because it's freaking hard to set up everything so that one person is on both sides of the Trojan communication and videotaping it. And then screen recording software often doesn't play nice with some of my monitoring tools. So you'll see that here in a minute. There's a barrier to entry for showing off this kind of demo, and that's just what I wanted to throw at you guys. That it's not easy, but it is a lot of fun, and hopefully this is worth it to you to see just how simple and simplistic this stuff can be. So this all revolves around understanding our own networks and how they work. As has been said by many of my Twitter InfoSec friends, I don't consider myself a huge expert in this field. I'm just a guy who's curious, interested, loves talking about it, loves playing with stuff. And I'm not going to go down to the ones and zeros of the TCP stack communication of how these things work. I just want to give you an example. I don't know how your network works. You don't know how my network works. I know how my tools work across my network. So I'm going to show you my view and hopefully give you something that you can use on your own. Again, red team testing, blue team monitoring for yourself. And especially important to note, and it never fails to surprise me that I'll see on these LinkedIn forums that I look at or various other places, somebody will be like, I downloaded this code from the internet and I was playing with it because I wanted to do this kind of evil gray hat thing, and then my box got owned. What the heck? Well, if you download stuff from the internet and click on it and run it on your system, bad things can happen. Haven't you shown that to people? So I'm going to show you a tool that I know I had a good copy of. I would not recommend downloading if you see it around anymore. So if you can, if you are one of those awesome uber elite people that can code your own Trojans, or you want to play with the simplistic first stages of them, write your own. Play with it. Then you can trust it. If you're not one of those people, like I am, who has to trust somebody else's good work, verify what you're doing before you put it on a network that you actually care about. Before I put any code out, especially to my clients, also on my own work networks, I make sure that the code that I'm playing with isn't doing something I don't intend, like calling out to a country on the other side of the earth. So, all right. This is demo number 1. I'm someone who I'm optimistic right up until it comes to playing with live demos. And we are going to really quickly, really simply drop some code. Oh, no, that's not the one I wanted to drop. So, did anybody bring a live goat to sacrifice to the demo deities? Awesome. All right, bring the knife, cut the neck. This is the time. You must have blood to appease the demo gods. If you're somebody who hasn't presented before, you might not have run into that situation, but I completely have. Okay. Come on, VLC player. Okay, so 2 things to note on this demo video. Yes, I'm using Teamviewer to watch 2 ends of a communication. Yes, this is cheating, and I'm fine with that. Literally what I've got going on here is this is a sacrificial system that my son messed up with his Minecraft server, so I was going to have to rebuild it anyway. And I was like, I'll put it to good use. It is sitting on one network. It has a particular IP address that I really didn't want to disclose to everybody at a hacker conference, so the video's lowered in resolution to hide some of that data. I'm using Teamviewer to both deploy the Trojan code and to watch what happens, because initial remote code execution is the hard part. I don't want to teach that in this kind of environment. I just want to give you something to show. So what we have here is a file. It's blatantly caught by any malware, anti-malware out there. I think I had Avast or whatnot on this system that I had to turn off. And then I have my other system, again sacrificial, on a trusted network across the internet that is running Dark Comet. Anybody familiar with this piece of code, Trojan Construction Kit? One of my very favorites. It has a beautiful interface. And the gentleman who wrote it did a lot of good work with it. And then the Syrian Electronic Army decided they wanted a piece of it, and he stopped developing on it. But I've had a copy of it for many, many years that I trust, that I've verified, that I monitor connections on. So that's what I used here. Literally, this is just a very simple remote connection. Give me a little functionality here. I have my standard error message to pop up so that I know that it's working. And it says, yes, I'm doing this on purpose. Click OK. And here's what we're going to see. That's on the victim end. On my other end, eventually, and there's always latency issues here, I will have a pop-up that tells me that this system on the other side of the internet, actually down the street, is now mine. Yeah, see, I didn't time that right. There we go. It is now mine. I get my new customer pop-up, and I have remote connection to this. Now, while this is going on, and the videos just did not combine very well, I'm running some detection systems on both ends of this network so that I can see the traffic communicating back and forth. As far as my victim knows, nothing is going on, I can pull up something like a communication prompt or whatever. Again, just proving that we have connection and type out a little bit of text. But the important part here is, does this look like every other Trojan demo video you've ever seen, except at lower resolution? Yeah, it does. Because the hardest part about getting this to work and getting it to show off right was the video capture setup. This is frighteningly easy to do, frighteningly hard to detect. So I'm popping up some chat windows and call it a day. This is my system. Again, getting it on the system in the first place, that's a hard part. That's a completely different talk. This is the Trojan demo of how things look across the internet. That's what it looks like on the ends of the communication. Here's what it looks like with a cool piece of networking monitoring system. Now, the problem with this video is this was on my Kali Linux monitoring box. This is a program called EtherApe. Anybody familiar with it? Very cool setup for monitoring connections. But as you can see, it gets very busy very quickly. What it's telling you, see that blue line right there? That's my active communication. That's my network traffic I can trust and say, something's going on here. Now, if I had done more obfuscation on the client end and not shown you the hacker end, this will be your only indication that something bad is going on. We've got a little bit of UDP traffic. Who here's monitoring their network for outbound UDP? Exactly. Who here is monitoring their traffic for outbound SSL? Exactly. For the record and those who are viewing at home, nobody raised their hand. That's hard to watch, especially if you have any gamers on your corporate networks that are playing League of Legends. That's all UDP traffic, which is a beautiful setup and another talk. All this other red traffic going on, all these other lines, all these other systems showing up on this EtherApe setup is all the other background chatter on my demo network. This is what's going on from the victim side, looking at the traffic going back out. The only thing that I can see, or that I could use to attribute malicious activity, is that IP address of where my communication is going back to. How many IP addresses does your corporate network communicate with on a daily basis? Lot. Like exponential numbers that get you have to pull up the weird screen on the calculator to view. A lot. How are we supposed to catch this? We know that unless you're using the system that the high schoolers showed this morning, malware is pretty easy to hide on a system. And then add to that the fact that all our networks communicating to the internet are extremely chatty. And we don't have a good idea, no hard numbers, no perfect setups for detecting this is absolutely bad, this is absolutely good, we have a problem. So that's what a demo, a great Trojan demo looks like, again, at low resolution. And I'm still working to make this video kind of play a little better, but it's just a nature of what we're using and what we need to use. There are other tools out there for monitoring this traffic, but this is one of the best that I have for small networks. You know, if it's a mom and pop shop, if it's your house or whatnot, EtherApe will tell you what's going on your network. If you want to go through, look at these nodes, investigate who these people are, you can usually figure it out. When I first started doing this, I was actually getting a lot of the IPv6 traffic. I'm like, I'm not running IPv6 traffic, what's this? And I had a bunch of just named IP addresses that I didn't recognize that didn't have reverse DNS set up, so I couldn't find them real easy. And I had to go and actually look through NW tools and RobTex and find out, oh, this is Microsoft background chatter. And I had to eliminate that Microsoft as a friggin' suspect for something weird going on with my Trojan demo network. How wrong is that? We have a problem. So I hate the fact that the networks that we have set up, the way that we have built things. See, and I was going to try and mess with Adrian by having that come up after my, oh, that doesn't show up at all. All right, please hold for video issues. Because they always have to be some, right? Back out of that. Yeah, see, there we go. Yeah, video issues. No, that's actually just my slides. So our standard network setups make it very, very difficult to monitor the good stuff and very hard to find the bad stuff. What can we do to change that? The number one issue I run into, especially dealing with corporate networks, is it's flat. I have talked to multinational, very secretive intellectual property companies that when you look at their network traffic or what little network diagrams they have, they're essentially flat. They've got some choke points, some bastion hosts or whatnot, firewalls, and then everything can talk to everything on the network, which means there's this huge mass of data rolling around on the internal that they have no idea what it's saying until something bad happens and things go down. And then they can go, oh, well, that was bad, and they still can't really identify it. The slightly better companies I run into, usually against smaller companies who have either been breached or have hired somebody who's been in a company that's been breached, and so they're actually a little worried about security, they will start to implement some segmentation. And I hate to admit it, but I am actually one of those dreaded QSAs for PCI. And for the longest time, PCI would tell you, a lot of QSAs would tell you, that if you just VLAN out your card developer, card data environment from the rest of your stuff, it's segmented good enough. And that's just blatantly wrong for anybody who knows how VLAN hopping works. So they have these network segments, air quotes, but everything can still talk to everything. We have no good monitoring in between business units or criticality units, and we have a blinky light device that lets us sleep at night. That as long as the blinky light device is blinking, everything's okay. Until it's not. And then somebody like me gets a call at 3 p.m. and says, hey, you need to fly to X. I have found, luckily, because we have some awesome clients in St. Louis and globally, actual tiered network setups where they know what's on their network. They know what communication needs to happen on their network. They have segmentation on their network so that this business unit has access to what it needs to and only that, true least privilege. And the problem is there's a lot of people who are at the top of that list, and there are very, very few who are at the bottom of this list. That's why those Trojans work. That's why that demo, if I were to do that in a lot of these clients, at a lot of these clients' places, they wouldn't see what was going on there. Even if I blatantly popped up something that said, hey, yes, this is a Trojan, click here, they would still click it. And I know that because I actually had a client who who asked us to do an on-site social. We got into a manager's office. I literally used a tool called Conboot, booted the system up so I was a local admin, created a HackerBen user account, threw OpenVPN on it to give me VPN access to the system later. Left that user account logged on, walked out of the building. My point of contact who knew what was going on said, oh, that's not really a Trojan covert communication, is it? I'm like, well, think about it. It's been 2 days. Has anybody told you that there's a remote connection on that computer? No. Do I really have to work that hard at being covert? No. And he went to the office that I had gotten into, and he took a picture of the user account blatantly on the screen with the manager sitting there, HackerBen. And they were oblivious. We've got a newer hacker. He started about 6 months ago, and the thing he keeps saying is it shouldn't be this easy. And my phrase back to him is, don't work harder than you have to, though. So we've got, no, we're not going to mess with that demo. So this is kind of the situation that we have. He's ugly. I can show you how to monitor for that one blue line, right, on EtherApe. We can do that. Conceptually, everybody in this room can go, okay, I could watch a little bit of Wireshark. I could get this Ethernet program that you're talking about. I could figure out what's going out of my network. Here's the problem. That's easy to do for one bad connection. What about 10? What about 100? What about 1,000? These things, this monitoring system that I use for my little test environments and for setting up, okay, maybe, videos for this type of stuff, it works for me. It's not scalable at all. I don't have a good answer for that problem. I would love to run into the network that can truly tell me, yes, I know what is good and normal on my network. Show of hands, who here has a network diagram that could even tell me how many network devices they have on their network? Okay, 2 hands and one of these. So again, not a lot of us. And everybody's pretty guilty of this fact. It's just how it is. So we have an ugly situation. We have a very pretty fun tool to play with in all of these Trojans. What are we going to do about it? My question to you is this. What do you need to know at your business in order to stop this kind of communication? At my place of business, I have an awesome office above a bar across from a coffee shop in downtown St. Charles. I highly recommend everybody come visit. I'll buy the first round. I know what I need to do to keep that network safe. And it's basically keep everybody off of it, which I do with access controls, and keep an eye on what's going in and out. It's very easy to lock down what's going in. It's harder to lock down what's going out, but I know that the cost of doing business is monitoring that, especially for my business. It's bad enough if I get breached, but if I get breached and my client records of how to breach all these other companies get breached, that could be bad. So it's worth, risk-wise, for me to invest and spend a lot of time making sure there's not something bad on my network, verifying what normal is on my network. You as a blue teamer, you as a security manager, you as a CISO someday or a CIO someday, or now, I don't know all of you, need to ask yourself, okay, what is it that my business does? What is it that's the data that's important? How can I protect it? How can I keep it where it needs to be and only where it needs to be? There's a lot of companies out there that will happily sell you a blinky light device to give you peace of mind so you can sleep at night. But if you still don't know what's on your network, you're not going to know what could be leaving your network. Secondary, though, the thing that I like to put into a lot of blue teamers' heads, and I teach this stuff also. Now, I get to do the pen testing, which is great. I get to do the incident response, which sucks. I have to do PCI, which is horrible, and I get to teach people how to think this way, how to see this stuff, how to do these. The fear that I try and put into my students' minds is that this is scary. The hacker, the bad guy, the malicious attacker does not need to know near as much about my network to break it, to exfiltrate data that could embarrass me, compared to what I need to know as the blue teamer protecting it. Defense is hard. You know, Robert said it really well this morning. Security's hard, defense is hard, but we can do it. And we need to focus on it better from the beginning, and then we'll be able to figure this out. We have an asymmetric warfare problem. You know, it doesn't take much for somebody to break me. It takes a lot of investment for me not to be broken. Keep those things in mind as you're protecting against these tools. And the phrase that I really like to use, especially when training, especially when talking to clients, is you have to have a normal before you can have a suspicious. This traffic that I showed on pretty much any network of anybody in this room looks benign. One little blue line on Etherrape. A couple little red lines of HTTPS traffic. You try and look at it in a Wireshark output, good luck figuring out what's bad and good, unless you already know what your devices should be talking to. You know, I have systems that they only need to take data in from this system. They only need to output data to this printer. That's it, and that's all they do. That's normal for them. If they start acting outside of that, then we can be suspicious. So I ask all of you, please, let's make this better. We can make this better by A, making people more afraid, which is fun. But that fear can sometimes go really sideways, as we've seen in the legislative branch of our government here lately. Stop CISPA. So let's make things better by educating ourselves. So I've got 5 minutes, it looks like. Any questions? Was it what you expected of a talk that says it's the great Trojan demo? You can say not quite. It's okay. I won't feel too bad. All right, so my contact information there if you have any other further. If you guys want to play around with some of this code on your own, I highly recommend picking up 2 books that I will show people. This is where I learned a good chunk of what I know about how to import stuff in Python and make it do evil things. Both great books by the same guy, Black Hat Python and Gray Hat Python. I do want to invite you all to please come check out ShowMeCon, which is our St. Louis conference. We love coming around to BSides, and I think we provide a very BSides feel community-wise at a higher level, and it's at a casino. It's a lot of fun. June 8th and 9th this summer. And I'm still looking for people to talk. I'm still looking for people to do training. So CFP's open. Please do it. So this is my I talk too fast and I haven't got any questions slide before we end. I try not to use that dreaded C word, and I'm trying to, like Iram here, we need to call it something different because we have atomic disasters. There's been a few of those not too long ago. We have biological disasters. We've had a few of those not too long ago, freaking Disneyland. And we have chemical disasters. We should start talking about digital disasters. It's not that they're a force of nature. They are preventable. But if we start talking about them at that kind of level and feel, it's not a breach. It's not somebody screwed up over here. It's we have a disaster. Let's bind together and do better. So that is all I'm going to say. Thank you all so much for coming to talk.